The ANC NEC has taken a hard line on the behaviour of former President Jacob Zuma's supporters outside his homestead in Nkandla. The party's top brass holding a special meeting on Monday where Zuma's looming arrest was the main topic on the agenda. The NEC reiterating its position on the disbandment of the MKMVA as well. For more on this, let's bring in political analyst Ongama Mtimka, who joins us now via our video link. Ongama, great to have you with us on the show this morning. Surprising a little that or a lot, depending on your perspective, that the NEC hasn't actually personally met with the former president.
Well, I think I take some satisfaction here that a deployment was made to the former president. It's important that the ANC shows due regard to the processes, but while at the same time doesn't elevate the issue too much to be political. It doesn't want to give suggestion that it doesn't want to suggest in its conduct that part of what is happening is subject to political negotiations between themselves and President Jacob Zuma. It's a legal process that's beyond political processes.
Yeah. That makes sense on the one hand. On the other, is it disappointing for one, I suppose, that given the flouting of lockdown regulations at Nkandla over the past week or so, specifically over the weekend, and several other issues that are at the top of mind for South Africa in terms of lawlessness in the country. Are you surprised we haven't heard from the president himself?
First of all, in relation to the party's role over there and what it could do about the flouting of lockdown regulations, I'm happy with the statement that the party has made, which reasserts the commitment to constitutionalism. Notwithstanding their reaffirmation of their affection for President Zuma, which I think that, they're entitled to, but a little insensitive to why we are here in the first place, that he has sought to undermine institutions that make our democracy work. As far as the president is concerned, I think he's playing a strategy here of not wanting to embroil himself in these processes because he has already been decampaigned as a person who has captured the judiciary. So if he comes in any language that sort of speaks, that reprimands what's happening, he may be, while that may be good as far as wider societal perspectives on whether or not he's leading, it might just, associate him as a person with vested interests in the judicial processes, and that, in the bigger scheme of things, doesn't aid the significant neglect. I think is very much involved in the decision making and everything else, but in the public eye, he's staying away so that he doesn't, in being seen to be an actor here, frame the processes as political, which is part of the ploy that President Zuma and company are attempting to play.
It's a legal issue, as you say, but then at the same time, there is a lot of politicking going on in the background.
Absolutely, there is, and there are legitimate claims being made about the voice of the president, but all I'm simply doing is to actually explain it in a game theoretical sense as to why he would maintain the position that he is currently. And the state, by the way, some of the things, for example, raised were why the state acted with kid gloves to those ANC supporters outside there. One thing, Michelle, for me, is that we must take into consideration the national security concerns that Bekitele highlighted. And by the way, that was time sensitive, that was context specific. If you look at the situation as your colleagues showed it in Nkandla now, the risks are a lot less than they were in the period leading up to Sunday. So what is delaying a decision to and in fact it was not even a delay as far as the order is concerned, but the delay perhaps was failure to deal with decisively with those supporters outside of his house at Nkandla at that time. The issue for me is that national security concerns are important, and our constitution places the obligation for national security on the executive and the legislature, not constitutional court, because that the limit is that it must apply itself to the law and must instruct on the basis of the law. Whether or not there's a civil war is a political responsibility that's on the executive and parliament.
Yeah, I mean it's a complicated scenario to weigh up, because on the one hand there are those, as you say, those legitimate security concerns that may well prevent the police from effecting that warrant of arrest come midnight tonight. But on the other hand, there's the argument that, are we being held to ransom by the supporters of one man?
In fact, Michelle, I believe that those national security risks were more likely in an outbreak of a shootout there in the context of the activities leading only up to Sunday. If you look at where the situation was, if the frame that we saw from your colleagues reporting on site is anything to go by, those risks are minimal now. So an arrest can in fact be executed. In terms of what emergent national risks in the way of the claimed civil war, I think that's just an overemphasis of the dissent, which is otherwise very fractional in a tiny fraction of politically active people within the ANC.
I mean, I have to ask you the question around how you saw proceedings unfold at the, at the Pietermaritzburg High Court yesterday. So on the one hand, Advocate Tembeka Nxumalo was concise, he was clear. I think it took 20 minutes for his submission to begin and to end. He says the case should be thrown out. It's as simple as that. Dali Mpofu, on behalf of the former president, arguing, you know, the former president is a sickly man. He's 79 years old. He's on the financial back foot. He's received bad legal advice. How do you see the court making this decision? Is it as clear legally as a jurisdiction problem, and the court cannot actually entertain the staying of this warrant of arrest? Or is there an argument to be made here that the Constitutional Court itself was perhaps harsh?
I've noted the arguments. As far as my own judgment is concerned, I can only go as far as saying the judge has a decision to make, in the sense that both arguments were presented. The argument around jurisdiction, as well as the statutory interpretations that were made. So the judge is going to have to make a decision. What I can say, though, Michelle, it looks like it's going to be a stretched decision for the judge to make. His body language showed that yesterday. He was battling to understand the arguments that were being advanced by President Jacob Zuma's legal counsel, and it's going to take a lot for him to actually rule in their favor.
Yeah, that ruling expected on Friday. Ongama Mtimka, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for weighing in on certainly one of the big stories in our country. He joins us live from Gqeberha.